Good evening, Council and members of the audience. Thanks for being here tonight. We welcome you to the Council meeting for Monday, May 23rd. Tonight we have a special guest. We have Bishop Kyle Young of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Bishop Young will be leading the invocation tonight. This time let me invite Bishop to come forward. Please join me standing for the invocation. Amen. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please be seated. Now time is 7:09. Let me call to order the regular Town Council meeting of Town of Sunnyvale for Monday, May 23rd. For the record, we have all council members except Mr. Finch and Mr. Allen are present. With 5 of the 7 council members present, we have called. The first item is recognitions. At this time, I'm going to invite Chief Hawks to come forward to recognize and badge pending for recent promotions within the police department, and also Chief Hendrick for the fire department. The first one is Corporal Racy Turner at this time. Chief Hawkins.
Evening, Council Mayor.
Good evening.
Anytime we have a promotion in law enforcement, we like to make that public and recognize the hard work of the officers. So this time I'd like to have Officer Racy Turner. Give you a brief bio on Officer Turner. Racy Turner began his law enforcement career in late 2007 with the Gregg County Sheriff's Office. During his time there, he worked within the jail and patrol divisions, as well as the fire marshal's office. Racy holds an advanced peace officer license, along with almost 2,000 hours of in-service training. Racy has been a field training officer for approximately 8 years and has spent over 6 years as an active SWAT team member. After Racy and his wife made the decision to relocate to the area to be closer to family, Racy left the sheriff's office and in late 2020 took a position with the Sunnyvale Police Department. Officer Turner is SPD's senior field training officer and has trained probably most of our officers that came after him, and was on the top of the eligible promotional list when this position came available. He is one of our most experienced officers, and it's an honor for me to present him with this corporal's badge. At this time, his family will pin him with his new rank.
Congratulations, Corporal. Okay, at this time, let me invite Chief Hendricks to come forward to recognize Captain Richard Atkins.
Pretty guys go. There they are. You know, you leave me just a time. Mayor and council, we appreciate tonight. I wanted to also stand here before y'all and promote one of our guys. Our assessment center, there was some candidates for this job with one captain, and I'm proud of all that participated in the assessment center that we had. That shows leadership going on within the department. I was very proud to see those guys stepping up. And unfortunately, there was only one choice to make. But so anyway, we came here tonight for Richard Atkins. Brief on him. He spent 12 years here in Sunnyvale. He's one of the few still around that did it for free for a while, and then became part-time and now full-time. He's been here 12 years. And he's also a veteran of the Navy for 6 years in the Navy, and licensed paramedic and firefighter. So really, really proud to have all the guys on the team, but Richard be one stepping up and leading the team now on C shift. So very proud of him. So at this time, I'd like Firefoot to bring up here. We've got something that we give. We don't need the badges, but we got something we present to Richard. Is in the fire service. It's very proudful to earn, and we want to present that. So firemen, come up here. Richard, please. So at this time, Captain, present you in your red helmet very proudly, because we are proud of you. So congratulations. Congrats. See you later.
Okay, that was beautiful. Okay, moving on to announcement and acknowledgement section of the agenda. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the mayor, council, and staff may report on various items listed on the agenda. So, council, I have two or three things I want to talk about. Number one, this is going to be our Assistant Town Manager Charles Goff's last council meeting. I can't remember exactly how long you've been here, maybe a year, a little over a year, maybe 2 years. Okay. So Charles came from when we needed a development director. Charles' name was recommended, and Charles came in from Allen, and he Addison, my bad. And he has done a phenomenal job in raising the quality and the professionalism of that development director position. And he has given some solid, well thought out advice to the council. As part of that, his growth and opportunity was the role of assistant town manager. And for the first several months, I would say maybe for a year, maybe even over a year, he was really trying to get up the development director department position, development services position. So he done in the last year or so, maybe 2 years. Charles has grown a lot in the ATM positions. We're going to miss you. We thought you'll be here for a longer time, but details, right? But we wish you all that is best. We thank you for all you have done. You made a difference in our town, and we will miss your services. Okay, we wish you all that is best. Go ahead. You say something?
Yes, no, thank you. We've really enjoyed you working here, so thank you very much. Good luck on your next endeavor, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
The second person we are losing is Joseph Yesdan Palahi. Took me a year to learn his last name, how to pronounce his name, but by the time I learned his name, he's gone, right? Joseph is our first IT director for the town of Sunnyvale. We always had outside services provide the IT support. Joseph brought a good personality, willingness to help, and he really made a difference, in my opinion, in Sunnyvale. And even though he's not here, whether he's listening or not, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to let him know that we will definitely miss him. He was a solid player. If you deal with IT people, and Mr. Eldred will tell you, IT people are knowledgeable but very dry people. But Joseph has very good personality. He had good interpersonal skills. He was a real good asset for the town. Again, he's getting an outstanding opportunity in a larger town, a larger city, and with a much bigger department. Here he was team of 1. The next job he's going to be team of 7. So it's a big growth for him. So while I hate to see him leave, I fully understand and I fully support his decision. Seeing good people grow and grow their wings is while it's painful and while sad, I am really, really happy for Joseph, and I also going to miss Joseph. Anybody else want any comments about Joseph? Okay.
I'll make one.
Yes. Sir.
I do fully understand why he's leaving, but I don't support it because I want him to stay. So I'm being selfish, but I wish him well. He's done great things for Sunnyvale. He's greatly advanced our IT department. He's greatly advanced our security. He's improved everything he's touched. It's been a great asset.
Yep, I agree. Joseph, if you're listening, Joseph, you'll be missed. You've done a great job here, and we do really appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
The third and most important portion here is a few months back, our town manager resigned. She actually retired. So I was in a conference in Houston, and I was eating my breakfast, and I got a text message saying from my town manager saying that she's retiring, or she's about to retire. So I went to my hotel room, made a phone call to my old friend, Mr. Bob Taylor. And I told Bob the situation. Bob was the one who recruited Susan Guthrie to Sunnyvale. And we were very pleased with what Susan has done. So I thought if Bob can bring Susan, he should be able to help us out at least for a near term. And I told Bob, we hope to have the next manager in place in the next few weeks. Again, I told him I don't know how long, and he knows better. So he has done the TM recruitment. He said, Mayor, I'll be there. I'll be there on Monday. If you want me there on Monday, this is, I was calling, I can't remember it. Just very, just towards the Wednesday, Thursday time, please. I'll be there on Monday. I live in Tyler. I retired. I'm not looking forward to coming here. I'm not looking forward to going back to work, but you call and I will come and help. He brought 40 years of municipal excellence, municipal experience to Sunnyvale. Bob has been nothing but a top-notch pro. And he did a lot to train and develop his staff. He empowered them, he trusted them. I have seen a sense of confidence in the director levels, which I have not seen before. That's because Bob entrusted them, empowered them, and he made sure that they succeed. This is going to be, probably won't be, I hope this is not Bob's last council meeting here, but May is, he signed up to be only until May, or until we select a new town manager. On May 9th, we completed the interview and offered town manager position to Mr. Jeffrey Jones. Jeffrey Jones used to be assistant town manager, city manager in Mesquite, and he came in. He was one of the many candidates we looked at. I forgot 32 of some candidates, but John signed the contract, and I also signed the contract last Friday. So officially, Jeffrey Jones, he will be our new town manager effective June 1st. Right now, he's not here. He's visiting his father. So with that said, I reached out to Bob this morning, maybe last week actually, from out of town. I asked him, Bob, can you stay for 2 more weeks to help us with the transition? And Bob has always been gracious, and he graciously said he will. So we need to talk about that later tonight. So it's not official yet. So right now, I hope Bob will be here at least for a couple more weeks. Yeah. With that, I want to say, Bob, we really, really enjoyed having you here, and thank you for the leadership and veteran leadership you provided, and helping us select the next town manager. Okay. With that, Mr. Freeman, let me Mr. Freeman.
Bob, I just want to say thank you. Not only have you done everything that Mayor George said, but you always did it with a smile. Always loved coming in, seeing that ear-to-ear smile, the big handshake. You definitely stepped in when we need you, and thank you very much. We definitely appreciate it.
Okay, Council, if I can, Bob, I want to take a picture with you, sir, if that's okay with you. We have a small token for says thank you for stepping in and dedicating your time and speech to our Sunnyvale. It's not been a privilege. You can tell us. Oh, good. You can tell us. All right. So
Mayor, if I could,
yes, sir, Mr. Egan.
um, Bob, again, thank you. You've really done a lot more for this town than you think in the short time that you've been here. And, you know, I kind of think, I don't know, I've not talked to these other guys about it, but if we could have you here for good, not that I think we made a bad selection in what we have coming up in front of us, but I will double to say what the mayor said, that we see a total difference in the demeanor of staff and in our employees from what we have seen for years, not just recent past, but for years. And thank you for that, because your experience and your, I guess just your ability, I think just shines through. And having you here for 2 more weeks, you got a lot more work to do.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Appreciate you. Thanks again. Members of the audience, I'd like to let you know ahead of time, item number 11, that is discuss and act upon resolution 2022-09 approving the concept plans for jobs and bonds for Samuel from North and New Hope Park. That New Hope Parks, that agenda will be tabled until the meeting of June 13th. So I will not be taking public comments on that one. The reason I'm saying that now, the next item on the agenda is a public comments. If anyone from the audience like to speak to this particular topic or any items other than personnel or legal matters, you may come forward and speak to the council at this time. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. Yes. Good evening, sir. Do you want to state your name and address for the record, please?
Chris Lawless, 365 Tavern Lane.
Good evening.
I would like to make public comment on action number 11 if I could, or if you prefer, I'll wait a certain.
So I will not be taking public comments on that one
Okay.
at that time because I'm tabling the agenda till June 13th.
Okay.
But if you like,
Citizens can address the council on any matter
right,
during public comment.
that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I will not be taking at that time, but if you like to make public comments on that topic,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
this,
I'm
at
free
this
to
time, you may
point.
do so.
Okay. Well,
You don't
thank
need to
very
wait
much.
till item number 11 because I won't be taking that item, but you
Okay.
can talk about that.
I'm specifically wanting to comment on the Jobson Park concept plan. On the Jobson Park concept plan, I've been involved in several meetings and discussions with the engineers for the park concepts. And when I'm reviewing the information that was released yesterday in the agenda item, I noticed that there was a new addition for parallel parking along Tavern Lane. That has not been in any previous discussions at all. In fact, all the comments previously in the last meeting, I think from 2 months ago, was that all the parking was going to be pushed to the 2 lots on Jobson. If there is an expansion need, certainly item number 12 on that concept plan could be expanded. That's the parking on the western portion that's being added. There's plenty of room for additional parking there, but we recently moved into our home last year and built a nice home. And the last thing I want to look at is a bunch of cars in my front yard. So if we could just push those off street, the people that put that together may not have known that I was building on that lot. Maybe they positioned it perfectly to where there was no home. But now that I'm living there, I'd really prefer to see if we could push that off the street and put it back in the regular parking lots. But I appreciate everybody's consideration of that. I know as we're moving to kind of refine these plans, I know at this point it's really a concept plan, but if we could really put our feet down and really push just to have it in the regular parking lots, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless.
Thank you.
Are there anyone who would like to make public, any comment, any would like to speak to the council on any items at this time? No one is coming forward from the chamber. Eric, anyone raise their hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Moving on to the consent agenda items. Council, we have item number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda item 4 through 8?
Motion to approve consent agenda item 4 through 8 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Eldridge to approve consent agenda item 4 through 8. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Mr. Finch and Mr. Allen are absent. Moving on to the discussion and action item portion of the agenda. Item number 9, discuss and act upon a determination of vested rights for lots 1 through 5 of the Shalim Park development located on the west side of the Belline Road, roughly 770 feet south of intersection of Town East Boulevard and Belline Road. Mr. Goff.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for a vested rights determination. Before I get into the details of the request, since this is a rare request for the council, let me take a step back and talk about the concept of vested rights and what is being requested tonight. State law, specifically Chapter 245 of the Texas Local Government Code, establishes the rules for how cities can determine what regulations apply to development. Prior to this statute, cities could approve a development and then adopt new regulations kind of midstream and apply those new regulations to the development. That could cause issues for developers. And so what resulted was Chapter 245, which states that a project becomes vested to the rules in place at the time the first application for a permit is made to a city. Typically, for most projects, that's when they apply for the preliminary plat, but it could be other kinds of permits if that's the first in a series of permits. If cities amend the rules after that first permit, then the owner can still develop under the prior rules with a few exceptions. And one of those exceptions is for projects that go dormant. And state law says that cities can define dormant for projects for which there is no progress made for a period of at least 2 years. It can be longer, but it can't be shorter than 2 years. Typically, determining how and which regulations apply to a development occurs at the staff level administratively as part of our review of a project. However, when there is a disagreement between the owner and staff about which rules apply, the owner can request a vested rights determination by the council to formally determine what set of rules should govern for a project. And that brings us to tonight's request. And so the Shalim Park development, which
Charles wants.
yes, sir.
When you say council has the authority to determine which rules apply,
Yes.
is it a choice, or are they guiding rules which council needs to follow?
There are guiding rules, which I will explain later in my remarks. So again, this request specifically, Shalim Park development is located on the west side of Beltline in between Town East and Creekside, just south of Chirales Plaza. It's 5 lots that are zoned local retail. On December 20th, 2007, and dates are important here, so that's why I'm saying the dates. December 20th, 2007, the property owner submitted their first application, that being for site plan approval and for a preliminary plat for the property. Both were subsequently approved. The final plat was approved after that, and the public infrastructure was installed, and there was some parking lot paving that was all completed and accepted by the town in October of 2010. After that, there was no vertical construction that occurred on the property. There was no progress made, and the final plat that was approved by the council was never filed with the county at that time. Fast forward after about 10 years of no progress, on December 23rd, 2020, after some conversations that month and maybe the prior month with staff, the owner resubmitted for final plat approval since that prior approval of the plat had expired without them recording the plat. So we brought it back through the process for P&Z and council to consider. It was approved and recorded with the county. And then more recently, staff has been in discussions with the developer regarding their site plan. And the developer wishes to develop in accordance with the site plan that was applied for in December of 2007 and approved subsequently in early 2008. And staff believes that they are subject to the current rules, which have some different setback requirements and different landscape requirements, which will cause them to redo their site plan and shrink some of the building sizes that they were proposing. And so effectively what that means is the developer believes that their rights were vested on December 20th, 2007, when they made that initial permit application. And staff believes that those rights were abandoned because the site sat dormant for over 10 years. And so the new vesting date should be the December 23rd, 2020 date when they reapplied for final plat approval, since that prior approval had expired. And so staff's determination is based on two things. First is Chapter 245, which again says that a property's vested rights are abandoned if that project becomes dormant. And that is, as the town defines it, but at a period not less than 2 years. And then if you look at our UDO, section 3.07.06E7, which says that for site plan approval, it expires after 2 years. And at that time, a new site plan is required to be applied for and approved. And that new site plan is subject to any new standards that apply at the time of the second application. And so based on our reading of Chapter 245 and our UDO, which says that site plan approvals expire after 2 years, we are recommending that council determine that the vesting date for this project be December 23rd, 2020.
So the question is, staff made the determination based on Chapter 240, the rules you just stated. Does council has a different set of rules, or council have the same set of rules?
So here's my advice to you. Chapter 245 establishes this process. And I think it is so that a city council can consider specific circumstances that may have caused a project to go dormant. For example, 2008 to 2011, nothing was built. And so individuals may have filed a preliminary plat application, their financing fell through, the mortgage-backed securities market evolved and broke open again in 2011, and they come forward and want to pursue that very same project. Those might be circumstances that would cause a council to say, I don't think we should count a nationwide economic stop to development against a development. But absent some unusual circumstances, both the statute and your own ordinances say that if a project is not pursued after 2 years, the protected status that the vested rights statute provides doesn't apply. And that's the circumstance in this case. So unless there are unusual circumstances or circumstances that the staff doesn't know about, my recommendation to you would be that you affirm the council's desire to follow the Sunnyvale ordinances that also follow the state statutory provisions.
Charles, let me ask you, did the staff check with the we'll ask the applicant the same question here second. Did the staff check with the applicant whether they have any unusual situations or circumstances which prevented them from going vertical?
So there were some discussions about how, yes, the economic downturn in that time period did cause some disarray. I think the question is, was there an opportunity to restart the project sooner than 2020? So I think there was some initial delay because of that, but I think the question for council is, how long do we give developers to recover and pursue a project after that?
And have you gotten feedback from the applicant? The reasons why? Mr. Egan?
Kind of a left wing idea, but or thought. When did 245 come into existence? Oh, before 2007?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor, Councilor, do you have any questions for staff at this time? I'll come back to you again one more time. Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, so my question is this. So talk to me about the 2020 plat. So they came to replat. Everything that was replatted at that point matched up with the UDO as it currently sits. And after that was agreed upon and accepted, then subsequently is when they've come back and tried to go back to the 2007 agreement.
So, right, so again, most of the things we look at on the plat are about easement widths and utility locations, things like that. So it wasn't until we got into the site plan phase that there were some, and frankly, at the time, we didn't even know there was a 2007 site plan out there. But we weren't aware until we started talking about the site plan that some of these more specific requirements about setbacks and landscape buffers in between properties and things like that would apply.
And what are the differences between the 2007 and the 2020 plans?
So they're wanting the 2007 and 2020 plan to be the same, or really
Right, so
the
what
site
is the-
plan to be the same.
Right, so what's the differences that we're saying, no, we have to change this now?
What's the ask versus what's the?
There are different setback requirements, and so I think at the time there were not front yard setbacks applied to some of these properties because they were interior to the site, whereas the current UDO says that your front yard is effectively wherever the front of your building is, even if it's not onto a public street. And then there's also some requirements that requires landscape buffering in between properties whenever there's a shared property line that their approved site plan did not account for. It had paving up to and including the property line. So that's requiring them to shrink the size and reorient some buildings and move parking around and things like that from the 2007 approved site.
So this may be a wrong word, but what's the hardship? I understand the rules are rules. I get that. Since the applicant has already developed the paving and I'm assuming utility connections also. I'm assuming. What, given the fact that they failed to file the plan, I get that, right? What is the hardship it will cost them if they stay with the two, if they had to redo the plan?
So they don't necessarily have to redo the plat. And even if the plat had been filed back in 2010, we'd still be having the same conversation because this is really about site plan approval. The plat is the plat at this point. What it will cause them to do is either have to shrink the size of buildings in order to fit the or comply with the setback requirements and fit parking and the extra landscaping on properties. Or it will require them to replat the property to maybe redo lot lines, maybe eliminate a lot to have the same size buildings, maybe one fewer building, because you have to supplement that with some extra landscape requirements and setbacks and things like that.
So now they have five lots. So either they have to shrink the size of the building, that way they can have the sufficient front setback and the landscape buffer. Or they have to redo it, comply, but they will lose the opportunity to develop as 5 different lots. Council, any questions for Mr. Egan?
Jim, the buildings that are, what would be on the setback, the front, the buildings that the front setbacks already exist on that would more or less face the belt line. Those are acceptable to today's standards, correct?
Most likely, yes.
And then it's only the buildings and properties behind that can't be seen from Beltline.
Correct.
I
Most
mean,
likely.
when you drive in, yes. I mean, they could be seen. And I've had this thought before about like another area, the senior living area that was going to be a part of the complex. And a lot of citizen feedback that said, we don't want, 5 and 6 dwelling units per acre, except they would never see it unless they go in there. And this is kind of along the same way. If what faces the general public, and that's kind of what we look for, what happens in your front yard, you want to look nice, but we really don't get into people about what goes on in their backyard. In this case, the buildings in the front and the setbacks are appropriate for even today's world. The density gets into the back of the property, and I see what's going through your mind a little bit, Brenda, because we're trying to define a gray area, and it really needs to be black and white. I think that's weird.
No, what I was going to say is what you are talking about sounds like an ordinance change.
Huh. Well, yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
But what's before you this evening is what rules apply, not do we like the rules, do we wish they were different? It's what rules apply based on the ordinance, the statute, and the facts.
And that's kind of where I was going with it, is that at the end of the day, does it really matter if it's built in today's site plan world? It was obviously okay at that particular time. We did make some changes later on, but the changes that are going to happen within this development really aren't going to be detectable by the public unless they go in there. It was okay before we made, we implemented the changes to the UDO. Initially I was going to go down the road of, well, no, they didn't do their thing right, so we need to make
Yeah, but I would worry about precedents here, right? We open ourselves up to
Well,
allowing people to.
So what you're saying is that you believe, notwithstanding the ordinance provisions that call projects dormant after 2 years, that you want to apply 2007 rules to this project.
Well, I'm thinking I do. I'm still kind of in the middle of this because I see both sides of it.
It seems to me you're making a policy decision rather than a fact-finding decision. And the vested rights determination really is a fact issue, not a policy question.
Okay.
Are there any discussions at this time? We'll come back. I want to get the applicant here for a second. Let me open up for public comments at this time. I'll come back to the applicant in a second. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come and speak to the council on this topic, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Eric, anyone raise their hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Do we have the applicant here? Good evening, sir. Just state your name and address for the record, please. Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight.
We'd like to request that y'all see that we do have a vested interest in this project. It wasn't simply just a site plan. This is several $1 million worth of infrastructure which has been constructed, installed, and approved by staff, approved by council, not once, but twice. Final plat was turned in, filed, somehow in a clerical error, the owner didn't know, I didn't represent the owner at the time. It fell through the cracks. Plat was not filed as correct. The Statement by staff being dormant, we disagree. We believe this is a completed project and not dormant. We've been taxed, or the property owner's been taxed as a completed development of the construction firm. And addressing your question as to what's the difference in the plat in 2010, it was approved versus the plat that was approved in 2020 or the latest plat. December 23rd, 2020. There's no difference in the plat that was originally approved. There's no difference in the current plat. If the setbacks used on Beltline are imposed on interior lots like many developments, it would shrink the buildings to a point of making these projects not feasible. And they've already spent several $1 million. Town, county, school district have reaped the rewards of these taxes and will continue to. By shrinking these, I'm not even sure they can develop the existing property as it is. There'll be parts up that are developable, but not maybe half of it. The setbacks, the landscape buffers, under the current zoning and ordinances, would shrink these buildings to a state of infeasibility. Y'all have the option of saying that we were vested in this project and that it wasn't dormant, but it was actually completed. We have the engineer, Bill Thomas. If you have any other specific questions, we can answer.
Thank you, sir. If you can stay there for a second, let me ask. I don't know if this question goes to Mr. Goff or Mr. Town Attorney. And I'm not an attorney here, but the argument is it dormant or not? I thought I heard a comment earlier, maybe I did not hear right. Unless the building goes vertical, it is considered dormant. Is that the correct definition of dormancy or not?
What the statute says, if there's no progress made on the project in 2 years. That's what the statute says. Our UDO just says that the approval of a site plan that isn't constructed expires after 2 years. And so
when
that
you say
site plan was not constructed within 2 years. Therefore, it requires a new site plan.
Construction, again, this is more of a legal question. I'm asking that, that's why I'm asking for this nitpicky. So they constructed something on the ground. They didn't construct the vertical structure, but they did construct. Does that satisfy the UDO definition of construction, or the construction has to be vertical?
Yeah. It's the fact that there was no progress made
It's
for a
standard
period of time.
no progress. It's not what did they get done. It's that they didn't do anything for 2 years, and now they want to apply the old rules when they start the project back up again.
Now, what about taxes?
Yeah, that statement I didn't understand. We don't have anything to do with the appraisal district's evaluation of the value of property. We have nothing to do with that. So if the appraisal district knows that there are improvements in the ground, we don't tell them that. And we have no input into their valuation methods. Those are covered in depth in the Texas tax code. So I can't speak to that, but what I can say is that the appraisal district does not necessarily look at the zoning. They look at how is the property being used. As it would be with an agricultural exemption. Doesn't matter if it's, on the toll road zoned for, 15 stories. If there are cows out there, it's considered agriculture. So I can't speak to how the appraisal district is valuing the property. What I can say is the city has no input into that.
So Freeman?
Mr. Vaughn, thank you for joining us. I have a couple quick questions for you. One, if you could let us know when the actual parking lot was constructed. And two, if you could also let me know the particular reason why construction was stopped and did not continue for a period of time.
construction was completed prior to 2010 when the final plat was approved by council and signed. City staff went to site, checked off on all the sewer, water, all the infrastructure improvements. That was all done prior to 2010. Final plat again was brought before council, signed off. And again, it was a technical error, clerical error, who knows, but it didn't get filed with the county. It was filed here with the town, but it was not filed at the county.
Right. So, so what I'm hearing is that it's not a plat issue.
Correct.
The plat was filed. I mean, the plat that wasn't filed, as I think Charles said earlier, had it been filed on time, we'd still be having this discussion because this is more of a site plan issue, not a plat issue. So what kept the project from moving forward? The recession. So from 2010 to 2022, the recession, 2020.
That's my understanding. I'm not
Sure.
the owner.
Yeah, absolutely. No. All right. Thank you.
Council, Mr. Clark.
So with the changes, I know you had sewer and water put in. With the changes that you need to make it comply to the UDO currently, would you have to change the sewer and water? Would that be part of the changes? Or is it just the
Very likely.
setback?
Likely.
Thank you.
What's the likely chance of needing to change the sewer line? Any comment?
It's really hard to say. It just depends on what they do to decide to comply. And how drastically they want to change the layout of the property. One of the things that we talked about with them, because we've really only talked about the back corner lot in depth with them. And I believe there's 3 lots that are kind of on the north side of that driveway that as it gets closer to the belt line. One of the things we've discussed is instead of having 3 lots there, maybe only have 2 lots. And that gives them more room to comply with the landscaping requirements. Lets them make the buildings a little longer and a little narrower, which would allow them to comply with the setback requirements. And so if they were to just do that, then I don't think that would require too much in the way of redoing existing sewer and water lines. There's already some stub outs and things like that. They may have to relocate or things like that, but digging up the entire line and moving it just for that, I don't think they
Mr. Clark.
So if there wasn't this clerical error, would we be having this conversation? We'd still be having this conversation because there hasn't been activity.
The only conversation that clerical error caused was having them have to go back through the process to get their final plat. So that's already been taken care of. The issue today is really about the site plan. Now, depending on the outcome of this, they may have to go back and replat the property to give themselves some more room. But that's an outcome of this conversation, not a cause of it. So we would still be here regardless of whether or not the final plat was filed in 2010 or in 2020.
Charles, I'm looking at this picture that's here. The X, is that the?
That doesn't denote anything. That's just our GIS.
Okay, that's just, okay, it's just, okay. I wasn't sure if that was the actual piece that we were talking about. All right, thank you.
Okay, do you have any additional comments?
No.
Mr. Lyons? Okay. Do you have any comments from the owner? Or the engineer? No? Can you share your name and address?
Good evening, Bill Thomas, Engineering Concepts and Design. We're at 201 Wind Cove in Wiley. And I can tell you that without a doubt, if you apply a 50-foot setback, which is what the current requirement is, to those internal lots and apply the landscape buffers to the lot lines that are there, we're not going to be able to have enough parking to support these buildings. it's very likely that the fire lane and access easement that's out there is gonna have to move. It won't work. They're too small to make that work. There's already dumpsters that are built in what would become a setback area. That would be illegal. We don't know where we would even be able to put dumpsters with this current configuration that they're asking us to, when they apply the 50-foot setback to the access easement internally. That makes this very unviable, makes the infrastructure that's already been put in highly in question.
So Mayor and Council, let me speak to that issue. Your job tonight is to determine what rules apply. Following that determination, the property owner determines whether they have a reasonable ability to develop the property. If they do not, then they have several avenues of recourse. One would be to rezone it with a new site plan, and it would be a PD, and you all decide if that's appropriate. The other would be if there's no way to build on the property by applying the new rules, to seek a variance through the Board of Adjustment. But that's a different question than the question that you are being asked tonight. In whatever you decide tonight will dictate the possible courses of action that they have. I think, frankly, they're trying to get at it in the easiest way they can. But there are other avenues available depending on your determination about what rules apply.
Thank you, Brenda. Anything else, sir?
Thank you for hearing her.
Council, are there additional questions for the applicant or staff?
With no further questions, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I was kind of confused on what we're.
So if you agree with staff, the motion would be to determine that December 23rd, 2020 is the vesting date for the project. If you agree with the applicant, it would be December 20th of 2007. So what you're doing is you're establishing the vesting date. So it's either December 23rd, 2020 or December 20th, 2007.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that the vesting date be considered the December 23rd of 2020.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman. Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Aldridge. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed? Motion passed 4-1. Voting in support, Mr. Egan, Mr. Eldridge, Mr. Freeman, Mr. George, and voting against, Mr. Clark, Mr. Finch, and Mr. Allen are absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item number 10. Discuss, consider, and act upon the 2022-2023 Council Strategic Action Plans. Mr. Goff? Or Mr. Turner?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're just seeking approval tonight of the presentation that we'd made earlier.
Okay, Council, has additional questions or discussions on this topic? We call for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come and speak to the council, item number 10, you may do so at this time. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. Public comes, we close the public comments. Council, are there any discussions? If none, can I have a motion with respect to item number 10?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the adjustments that were made in the work session.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman to approve the 2022-2023 Council Strategic Action Plan with the amendments discussed in the work session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Eldridge. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Mr. Allen and Mr. Finch are absent. Moving on to item number 12, as I stated earlier, item number 11 is tabled for the meeting on Monday, June 13th. 12, update and discussion regarding the town's street maintenance program.
Mayor and Council, that's me. We're having some technical difficulties with the presentation, so give me just a minute.
Okay.
Great IT security measures are taking a while to make sure that there's no virus in our presentation.
I think Joseph did not pass along his passwords.
Uh-huh.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, as requested, we wanted to provide an update on our street maintenance program that resulted from the DMAIC process that we started in 2021. Just as a reminder of the foundation of the plan, back in March of 2021, the council approved a resolution that adopted the plan and identified funding sources for the initial phases of the plan. And the goal of that plan was to keep all streets in the town at a grade of 75 or better. We had an evaluation scale. We went out and measured kind of the rideability and the condition of the pavement and gave it a grade on a scale of 0 to 100. And so the goal is to keep everything 75 or better. And then council directed staff to either repair or replace the red sections. And again, those were the street sections that ranked 50 or below 50 on that scale. Based on the prescription recommended in the council presentation during the work session in February of that year. And again, that was replace some, repair others, in some places do sub-base treatments and others not. And then after all the red streets are taken care of, begin the yellow streets, which are those that are ranked from 50 to 75, kind of just working down that list, starting with Town East Boulevard. And at the time, the estimated cost was 6.8 million. And council identified a variety of funding sources that we cobbled together to create about $3.9 million in funding that first year. Then fast forward to the current fiscal year budget, we allocated another $300,000 towards the program. And then in December of last year, we were awarded an $800,000 grant from TxDOT to repave Trip Road from Beltline Road to the Falls. And so compared to that $6.8 million budget, we have funding for about $5 million in total worth of projects. And I'm not going to go through this this chart, but you'll just remember that this was the chart that we were kind of working off of that ranked everything based on its pavement condition, highlighted the red streets and the yellow streets and the proposed prescription. So that's just to jog your memory of what we talked about at the time. And then, so based on that, our initial efforts were we have done road construction on a portion of Planters Road. That is where we worked with the developer to get them to repair a significant portion of Planters. We also went out for bid and replaced several panels on Clay Road. And we focused on the worst panels. We didn't have enough funding to address all of Clay Road. We prioritized the worst panels. And then also we did an overlay of Riverstone Drive, which is what that picture is of on the slide. And then on other projects and on those as well, we spent a lot of time in the initial months getting geotechnical analysis to determine what the appropriate sub-base treatment was. As we talked about a lot during the initial development of the program, a lot of the reasons that we believe Sunnyvale's roads collapse so quickly is because of sub-base issues. And so we wanted to understand that a little better and determine what the appropriate sub-base treatment was for the streets that were needed to be addressed. And then also one thing we did was in our DMAIC process, we actually did not propose to do anything to Duck Creek since the primary user of Duck Creek is the city of Garland and their treatment plant. But we were able to coordinate with Garland and convince them to repave the street for us. And so that was recently completed at Garland's cost, not our own. So then the next phase, which is still ongoing, was back in September of last year, the council approved a contract with Reliable Paving in the amount of about $2.4 million to repair or replace portions of several streets. I have those listed on the screen, portions of Town East Boulevard, Long Creek from Clay to Larkin, Gloria from East Fork to the end, Collins from Tripp to Redstone, Polly from East Fork to Barnes Bridge, and then East Fork from Town East to Gloria. And so those were the kind of first tranche of asphalt streets that we wanted to address as part of this program. And due to just the state of the world and contractor availability, our intent was for the contractor to get started on those last fall, but they just could not get to them before the weather turned cold in the winter, and you can't lay asphalt in the winter because of the temperature. So they couldn't get started until this much more recently. And so they have completed Gloria, again, from East Fork to the end. They are in process of Long Creek. They've done half of it. They've done the soil stabilization and rough grading on the other half of the street and should be able to pave it later this week. That's taken them some time because there are shortages in everything these days. The newest thing is the lime that's needed for the lime stabilization, which again is important for the subbase. There's a shortage of lime. We've run into the same thing on the fire station. That delayed us a little bit. We eventually came up with a workaround on that on the fire station. But that held us up for several weeks trying to get lime. We also had some culverts that collapsed while we were redoing that street that took us some time to replace. And then we also found some old railroad tracks just still in the road that tore up their machines that we had to figure out how to mitigate for those things as well. So if it's not one thing, it's another on this. So, but again, we should be done paving that road hopefully by the end of this week if the weather cooperates. Then from there, we'll move on to East Fork and Polly. We're going to use a different stabilization method that is a combined lime and concrete stabilization method that the contractor thinks will be easier for them to procure. And so we've reviewed the details on that and approved that to hopefully get that moving faster. And then the other two streets that need to be addressed as far as this first tranche are Town East. We intentionally deferred those to the end of the list pending completion of the Tripp Road culvert. We didn't want to have really three of our east-west streets blocked at one time if you include Barnes Bridge. And so once Tripp Road is complete, they'll move to Town East. And then also we were again pushing Collins to the back of the list just to wait until school releases for the summer. So we should be able to start that at any time. Then our intent was to begin to put out for bid the next phase of streets so that we can get those approved, hopefully by council, in the next month or so, and then have those in line to be started once these were complete, and hopefully finish this fall to stay within this calendar year or soon after. And so in April, we released the next round of bids. We separated out the asphalt streets and the concrete streets. On the left column there are the asphalt streets that included Trip Road from Beltline to the Falls, North Jobson from Trip to Town East, East Fork from Town East to Poly, Michael Lane, and then Collins Road from Redstone up to the northern city limit line at Barnes Bridge. And then the concrete streets of Molina, Magic, the remainder of Planters that the developer wasn't able to get to, and Sunburn Lane. We opened bids on May 12th, and we had 0 bidders for the asphalt streets. And we got 2 bids back on the concrete streets, and they were much higher than we were expecting. Our budget, or what we thought these were going to cost based on the estimates, again, admittedly about a year and a half old at this point, was about $330,000. And as you can see on the screen, the bids were $1.9 and $2.6 million. So that is quite the difference there. That we're still trying to determine exactly what the cause of that was. Obviously, there's been some escalation in the market, but there's more to it than that we're still trying to track down. So the next steps kind of in our process are to obviously complete the streets that are included in the reliable paving contract, and then look at these most recent bids, see if there's any alternatives that we can use. We've talked about an IDIQ contract that may, if we can increase the scope and potentially the amount of the contract, that might entice more bidders if it's kind of more open-ended. We've also looked into if there's any interlocal agreements that through the county or through other communities that we can hop onto, if we can find contractors that are willing to play there. If we can, we're still looking into that. Or we might just have to see if there's other means that we can utilize to get or raise our publicity, if you will, of our projects. Right now, we post in the Mesquite News, and we have kind of our own email list through our website. There are websites you can post to. There are email lists that you can buy into to have a broader distribution. Those cost money. But if we're not getting good bids or quality bids, it may be worth the investment to do that. And then obviously, I think there has been a shift in the market as far as what the cost of these projects are, with labor issues being what they are, with inflation and supply chain issues also. And so, we may need to kind of pause, relook at our cost estimates, adjust them to the current world of contracts as it is today, see if we can find any other alternative funding sources, and kind of restart the conversation with council about what all those would be. But that's where we're at today with the demand process overall. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I know at some point we discussed the possibility of having that contractor that we actually went contracted with solely, so that we didn't run into some of these issues as far as bidding and whatnot. What kind of kept that from happening? And I mean, was it something that we had discussed but we never went final with it? I'm just curious.
So a couple things happened. The intent was to use the IDIQ contract, which is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. It's what that stands for more of the ongoing routine maintenance. The original intent was not to use that for this first round of addressing the streets. We were going to bid those out in groups because we thought that would be sufficient enough. As far as why we didn't get that out, it was just a manpower thing. We haven't had the time to focus and draft it like we wanted to. And again, we thought that was more of a kind of a second phase of all of this, not the initial phase. We're just rethinking that, because if we can go out to the market and say, hey, we have $5 million to spend on road projects, it may be more enticing than people bidding on a smaller project at that point.
Yeah, and I'm not here to give absolute direction, but I think that from the more and more we hear from the people of the town, roads are a big concern. So maybe we should look at possibly doing that IDIQ sooner rather than later.
Also, can we have an update on the Trip Road construction?
The current estimate is that it will be complete sometime in June. Sometime in June.
Now, are there
They're,
any,
they're still within the bounds of their contract, so they have the days to use. And so, yeah, that's what they're telling us.
right, there's no financial penalties or anything with them going?
Not at this,
June.
not at this point.
No.
If it extends, far into July, then, we can have that conversation then, but as long as they keep it done in June, then we're not there yet.
Okay, June it is. Any other questions on the DMI projects?
One more question. Is the bid still open? It looked like it was opened up May 12th. So are those bids still open?
No, they're closed.
They're closed. Okay. So we're looking at just extremely high, basically what we had budgeted for a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's just, triple, quadruple the amount.
Correct.
And do we know why asphalt, we couldn't get any bidders for the asphalt roads?
Not specifically, we're following up to try and see. We know that a lot of the contractors is really busy right now. They're under the same issues that Reliable is running into as far as being able to find materials, to being able to find reliable labor. And so I think everybody is just trying to, struggling to complete the projects they've already committed themselves to. And so our guess is they just may be hesitant to commit to new projects until, again, the market settles down a little bit or they get further along in their other projects.
Thank you.
Additional questions or discussions? Ms. Brenda, do I need to open up for public comments on this topic?
You can.
Okay, I'm going to open up for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who'd like to ask a question or you participate in the discussion, you may do so. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. Yes, sir. Good evening. Go and state your name and address.
Chris Wallace, 365 Tavern. I would like to piggyback on the Trip Road discussion. I'm the president of the local bank here. A lot of our customers are having a hardship getting to our location, coming from the Mesquite area and the western portion of town. So anything we can do to expedite that, we really appreciate it.
You're all struggling. Okay. Are there anybody else from the audience who'd like to come and speak to the council? No one is coming forward from the chamber. Eric, can you raise the hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Council, are there additional discussions on item number 12? Okay. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate you. Ms. Lyle, thank you very much. Brian, thank you for your help. Moving on to the item number 13, Mayor and Council request for future staff updates and agenda items. Mr. Clark.
When will the town have an update?
Question, is it a
Yes,
an
sir.
agenda item or a different question?
This request for agenda item. So can we have an update on the water quality issue at some point issued by the town? Just is it, and I know there's some updates. So can we get updates at maybe the newsletter or?
Absolutely. We'll
Thank
get it.
Now
I
my
assume-
20 now my
assume-
21st.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get that to you fairly quickly because the update, we can tell you exactly, I guess your reference to the water quality TCEQ.
Right.
issue? Yeah.
Correct.
We can update that very quickly.
Excellent.
We can get that up to you.
I've had a few
If you have
questions, so that would be great.
factual- If you have factual information, you can give it now, or you can wait and provide it.
Yeah, my preference would be to let me visit with Brian, only because the information we've got right now, it's all factual. The water's good. You could start drinking it the same day that they got the report. However, I know everybody would rather hear something a little bit more concrete and substantial than that. So if you'll allow me to.
No, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Are there additional requests? Okay, moving on to the next item, that's item number 14, section 551.074, personal matters. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, town manager?
Motion go ahead. Motion to adjourn into executive session.
Motion made by Mr. Clark. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Freeman to adjourn to executive session pursuant to section 551.074. Personal matters. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Time is 8:27. Meeting is recessed. And there has to be one motion, right? Have you made us one motion?
No, it's two motions.
I'm sorry, corrected. Okay, now time is 8:45. We are back in open session. Council, as a result of the executive session, are there any motions?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve the employment agreement for Jeff Jones as town manager.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Freeman to approve the employment agreement with Jeffrey Jones as the new Sunnyvale town manager. Motion made by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Eldridge. Everyone heard the motion.
Mayor, should that be as discussed?
Are you okay, Mr. Freeman?
As discussed, yes, absolutely.
Other additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Mr. Finch and Mr. Allen are absent. Is there another motion?
Yes, I'd like to make another motion to allow the mayor to give an extension to the consultant agreement for Bob Turner. As discussed.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman to authorize the mayor to execute a consulting agreement extension with Bob Turner.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Mr. Eldridge. Everyone heard the motion. The additional discussions. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Mr. Finch and Mr. Allen are absent. With that, time is, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Clark to adjourn. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 5-0. Time is 8:47 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, staff, council,